Language growth charts show early individual differences in both comprehension and production, and early individual differences document the long-term effects early language skills have for later language, cognitive, and academic abilities. But where do these early individual differences come from? Why do some children already show larger vocabularies and more efficient language processing than others before they are even 2 years old? The 30 million word gap suggests that family socioeconomic status, SES, plays a role in early language individual differences. While indeed family SES is related to early language differences in children, family SES alone does not reveal the full story. In one study, researchers looked at the potential factors in language growth across a group of toddlers, all from families with a low SES. Children wore a special recorder that captured the language they were exposed to throughout the day, over multiple days. Results revealed great variability in language exposure, even though the children were all from families with lower SES. Figure 1 charts the varied language experience of the children. Each colored column represents one child, and the height of the column represents the number of words a child heard in a 10-hour day. Some children heard over 25,000 words in one day, while others heard under 2,500 words in one day. This is data from just one day, but imagine the compounding effect this has over the first 3 years of a child's life. These results move the spotlight away from SES and instead shine it on the variable language experiences of children. In general, children from families with higher SES hear more language than children from families with low SES. But even within the same SES level, there are significant differences in language experience. To estimate how many words infants and toddlers hear across different ages, another team of researchers also used a small language recorder worn by children to automatically count the number of words infants and toddlers heard throughout the day. Below is a table summarizing some of their data. Take a moment to look carefully at the table. Included in the table are the ages of children and the number of children studied at each age, the average number of words each age group heard, and the standard deviation for each age group. What did you notice? Did you notice the relationship between age and the number of words children heard? The youngest children heard the most words. Infants heard more words than toddlers, with the youngest infants, 2 to 4 months of age, hearing the most words. Why do you think younger children are exposed to more words than older children? While quantity, the sheer amount of language children are exposed to, is clearly important, research suggests the quality of the exposure is even more important. Let's revisit Figure 1. While the height of the columns represent the quantity of language exposure, the colored sections of the columns represent the quality of exposure. Some children heard lots of language spoken right to them, like when they were talking and playing with their parents. This is referred to as child-directed speech. The bottom color of each column is green, representing the amount of words heard that were child-directed. Other children heard lots of language that was not directed to them, like when their parents were talking to each other or to their brothers and sisters. This is referred to as overheard speech. The top color of each column is blue, representing the amount of overheard words. It turns out that the toddlers who heard more child-directed language had bigger vocabularies and had more efficient language processing abilities than the children who did not hear as much child-directed speech. This shows that it is not just the quantity of words that is important, but that the quality of the words may be even more important. Child-directed language is just one way to think about the quality of language infants and toddlers experience. Another way to perceive language quality is through the conversational turn counts between children and adults. Turn counts are an important quality measure because they capture the critical, interactive, and responsive aspect of conversation. After controlling for SES, toddlers who experienced more conversational turn counts with caregivers had higher IQ scores and language abilities later in childhood at ages 9 and 13. There are important early differences in the quantity and quality of language that infants and toddlers experience above and beyond SES. Research has found that both quantity and quality of language exposure during the first 3 years of life is related to language and cognitive abilities in later childhood. While caregivers should consider increasing the quantity of language their infants and toddlers experience, focusing on various quality aspects of their language interactions is the most important.